You made at least a dozen decisions today without thinking about a single one of them. What to eat, what to wear, who to trust. And a psychologist won the Nobel Prize for proving that most of those decisions were wrong in a predictable, measurable way. This is thinking fast and slow, and it will change how you see your own mind. Daniel Kahneman spent decades studying something simple. How do humans actually think? Not how we think, how we actually do it. His answer? You don't have one mind. You have two. System 1 is fast, automatic, instinctive. It's the part of you that knows 2 plus 2 is 4 without calculating, that flinches before you consciously register danger, that reads a face and knows in half a second if someone is angry. System 2 is slow, deliberate, effortful. It's the part of you that multiplies 17 by 24, that fills out a tax form, that actually stops and thinks before answering. Here's the number that should concern you. System 1 handles roughly 95% of your daily decisions. System 2, the part of you that actually reasons, barely gets a vote. And System 1 is riddled with predictable errors. Here's the uncomfortable part. System 2 is lazy. Genuinely, measurably lazy. Kahneman calls it cognitive ease versus cognitive strain. Thinking hard is expensive. It burns glucose. It feels effortful. So your brain, being efficient above all else, avoids it whenever it can get away with it. Which means most of the time, System 1 makes the call, and System 2 just rubber stamps it, approves it without checking the work. Like a manager who trusts their employee completely and never reviews a single report. That manager is you, and the employee has been making silent mistakes for years. The first mistake is one you've made this week without knowing it. Mistake 1. Anchoring. Kahneman ran an experiment. He spun a wheel rigged to land on either 10 or 65. Then he asked people, what percentage of African countries are in the United Nations? The number on the wheel had nothing to do with the question. It was random, rigged, meaningless. But people who saw the wheel land on 65 guessed a far higher percentage than people who saw it land on 10. A completely irrelevant number quietly shifted their answer. This is anchoring. The first number you hear becomes a silent reference point your brain cannot fully escape, even when you consciously know it's irrelevant. This is why the original price is shown crossed out next to the sale price, why negotiators throw out an aggressive first number, why real estate agents show you the expensive house first. But here's where it gets personal. Think about the last time you negotiated a salary. Whoever said a number first, you or them, that number became the anchor for the entire conversation. If they said it first, you were almost certainly negotiating around their number, not your actual worth. Restaurants do this constantly too. That one absurdly expensive dish on the menu rarely sells. It doesn't need to. Its entire job is to make everything else on the page look reasonable by comparison. You think you're evaluating the offer. You're actually anchored to a number someone chose on purpose. And it gets worse. Mistake 2 happens every single time you open your phone. We've covered one mistake. There are 3 more, and one of them Kahneman himself said he still can't fully overcome, even after winning a Nobel Prize for identifying it. Stay for that one. It might be the most useful 5 minutes of this entire video. Mistake 2. The availability heuristic. Quick. What's more likely to kill you? A shark attack or a falling vending machine? Most people say shark. It's wrong. Vending machines kill more people every year in the US than sharks do. But sharks are vivid, dramatic. They're in movies. News coverage of a single shark attack spreads for weeks. Vending machine deaths never make headlines. Your brain doesn't judge risk by actual statistics. It judges risk by how easily an example comes to mind. The more vivid, recent, or emotional something is, the more likely your brain assumes it is, regardless of the real numbers. This is why you fear plane crashes more than car crashes, even though driving is statistically far more dangerous. Plane crashes are rare, vivid, and heavily covered. Car crashes are common and boring. Here's a version of this you've probably experienced directly. After watching one news story about a break-in nearby, you suddenly feel unsafe in your own neighborhood, even though the actual crime rate hasn't changed at all. One vivid story rewired your entire sense of danger. It works with good things too. If a friend tells you an incredible story about a stock that made them rich, you'll overestimate how likely that outcome is for you. Because the story is vivid, not because the odds are actually good. Your fear isn't calibrated to danger, it's calibrated to memorability. And mistake 3 is the one that's costing you actual money. Mistake 3, loss aversion. And this is the one that Kahneman himself said never fully goes away. Here's the setup. I offer you a coin flip. Heads, you win $150. Tails, you lose $100. Mathematically, this is a fantastic bet. Take it enough times and you win big. Most people refuse it anyway. Kahneman's research found that losses feel roughly twice as painful as equivalent gains feel good. Losing $100 hurts about as much as gaining $200 feels good. This single asymmetry explains an enormous amount of human behavior. Why you hold on to a falling stock instead of selling. Why you stay in a job, a relationship, a situation that isn't working, because leaving feels like a loss, even when staying is worse. Think about the last time you almost returned something you bought but didn't, even though you knew you'd never use it. Once it was yours, giving it up felt like a loss, even though the money was already spent either way. That's loss aversion working on you in real time, over something as small as a jacket in your closet. Why free trials convert so well? Once something feels like yours, losing it hurts more than never having had it. Streaming services, gym memberships, subscription boxes, they all bank on this exact mechanism. You don't cancel not because you want it, but because canceling feels like losing something. Your brain isn't built to maximize gains. It's built to avoid losses, even when avoiding the loss costs you more in the long run. Now, the deepest bias of them all, the one that explains all the others. We are exactly halfway through this book, and everything so far has been about single decisions. What comes next is bigger. It's about why you think you know yourself, and why Kahneman proved that the version of you making decisions right now might not even be the real you. Kahneman calls this one WYSIATI. What you see is all there is. Your brain doesn't wait for complete information before forming an opinion. It builds the most coherent story it can from whatever is currently in front of it, and then treats that story as the whole truth. Give someone a single positive fact about a stranger, and they'll construct an entire confident personality around it. Give a jury only one side's evidence, and they'll form strong, certain conclusions, with no awareness that half the story is missing. This is why the first version of a story you hear tends to stick, even after it's corrected. Why first impressions are so hard to shift. Why confident people seem more credible than uncertain ones, even when the uncertain person actually knows more. Think about the last argument you had online, or watched unfold in a comment section. Both sides were completely confident. Both sides felt certain they had the full picture. Neither one did. WYSIATI means confidence and accuracy are almost completely unrelated. You can feel 100% certain while working from 10% of the information. This is also exactly how a single photo, a single quote taken out of context, or a single clip can completely define how the internet feels about someone. Nobody goes looking for the missing 90%. What you see is all there is, so it becomes, in your mind, all there was. Your brain isn't built to say, I don't have enough information. It's built to feel certain with whatever scraps it has, which means the confidence you feel right now about almost anything might be based on less information than you assume. Here's the part of the book that genuinely unsettled people when it was published. Kahneman argues you don't have one self. You have two. The experiencing self, who lives entirely in the present moment, feeling whatever is happening right now, and the remembering self, who builds a story afterward, and who is the only one you actually consult when making decisions.
Here's the experiment that proves it. Patients undergoing a painful medical procedure were split into two groups. One group had the procedure and it ended. The other group had the exact same painful procedure, but it was extended slightly, with a lower level of discomfort tacked on to the end. Logically, the second group suffered more total pain, more minutes of discomfort. But when asked afterward which experience was worse, the second group rated it as less unpleasant. Why? Because the remembering self doesn't average an experience. It judges it almost entirely by the peak moment and how it ended. A bad ending overwrites a shorter total experience. This means your memories of your own life are not an accurate record. They're a highlight reel, edited by a narrator obsessed with endings. And that narrator is quietly running most of your decisions. Stay with me for one more minute, because I want to give you something you can actually use, a real way to check which of these biases affects you most. Think of a recent decision, something you chose in the last month, a purchase, a relationship choice, a job decision. Now ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Did you accept the first number, price, or option you were given without comparing it to anything else? That's anchoring. 2. Did you make the decision based on a vivid recent story rather than actual data? That's the availability heuristic. 3. Did fear of losing something outweigh a clearly better opportunity? That's loss aversion. Most people find at least one of these hiding in a decision they were completely confident about. And here's the uncomfortable truth Kahneman himself admitted. Knowing about these biases does not make you immune to them. He spent his entire career studying this and still caught himself falling for the same tricks. The goal was never to eliminate System 1. You can't. It's how you survive the other 95% of your life. The goal is to know when to slow down and let System 2 actually check the work. Here's what makes thinking, Fast and Slow, different from every other psychology book. It doesn't tell you to trust your gut, and it doesn't tell you to overthink everything either. It tells you something more useful. Your gut is fast, efficient, and wrong in predictable, specific ways. Once you know the pattern, you know exactly when to double-check yourself. Anchoring, availability, loss aversion, WYSIATI. The two selves. You won't remember all 5 names by tomorrow. That's fine. But the next time you feel completely certain about something, pause for 1 second and ask, is this system 1 talking? Or did I actually think this through? That 1 second is the entire book. If this helped, subscribe. We break down one psychology concept or one book every week. No fluff, stick figures, small words. See you in the next one.